class, I'm going to run through, but the really class, it pains me to erase this beautiful Syriac writing, which is so much more beautiful than my Syriac writing. However, let me use this thing. And we'll very briefly run through today what we saw in the previous class. So the first thing we discussed, after discussing the sound shifts, we discussed the sound shifts, and you have that on the sheet, so I don't need to go into that too much. And all of you, as you sort of study Semitic languages, will hear this so much that I don't think I need to go into it too much. The only things that are specific to Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, as opposed to, say, classical Syriac or other Middle Aramaic dialects, is the issue of Ayn shifting to Aleph and the Het shifting to He. And we'll see examples of these as we go through text, and it becomes reasonably straightforward the more we see it. But this is very significant, and as I said, the number of these kinds of spellings is much larger in early manuscripts than it is in the printed editions, although there are plenty of them in the printed editions of the Talmud too. And therefore, it seems to have been a very pronounced phenomenon in Babylonian Aramaic, in the southern and central Babylonian dialects, as somebody likes to call them. Where these dialects start on the map, where the northern dialects end, we don't really know, because we don't have texts that can be located in these areas from that time. In other words, we have classical Syriac, and then we have these magic bowls, and then we have later Maimonidic and Talmudic texts, but in the middle of, say, the area of Baghdad or something, what were people speaking? We don't know. There's just no way of knowing. So then our main topic was about the verbal sense, and we said that unlike biblical Aramaic, which has passive forms of the perfect and in the Ketiv form and the Hof'al form, so we have Ketiv and Honhat in biblical Aramaic as passives, but we also have the ones with the T prefix. Jewish Babylonian Aramaic has the development we find in the Middle Aramaic dialects onwards, and the late Aramaic dialects onwards. The Middle Aramaic may still have some passive, late Aramaic dialects onwards, that the passive, the internal passive, which is formed by just changing the vowel pattern, is found only in the participles, and that the main way of forming the passive of a verb, a finite verb, is by adding the T prefix. And hence we said, if we have the basic stem being ktav, sleep, and kuf, then the passive of that is ifkativ. Ifkativ. And if we have in the second stem the doubling of the middle radical, as in habil, or the verb shaddar, where the vowel here is not E, but rather A, because it comes before one of the more laryngeal pharyngeal consonants, He, Het, Ayn, or Resh, or Aish perhaps. If it's laryngeal pharyngeal, perhaps Aish. Here, It, Habba. Ifqabbal, with the gemination, ifqabbal. Not hitkabbel as in Hebrew. Very important distinction. It's important because it will lead us astray if we expect to find an E or E vowel there. Then we will not understand what we are reading. Whereas otherwise we understand everything that we're reading, right? And finally, afsid, to cause loss, or ashbah, to cause gain, improve the value. And the passive of this should in theory be something like itaf'al, itaf'al, but instead of that we receive ittafal. Anyone who studied Arabic knows about the iftala of roots like that have the first vav or the first aleph. So for example, ittahada, right? Wahid. Or ittakhadha, from akhadha. So the same phenomenon, the parallel phenomenon is found in Arabic. Probably not historically related, but the parallel phenomenon is found in Arabic. And here we have itaf'al. Itaf'al. As I said, if you can't read all of my scribbles, then you can always make use of the printed materials. In fact, you should, because they are clearly printed with all of the vocalization in where necessary. However, as I mentioned to you, Babylonian Aramaic isn't so nice. And therefore, the third here of iskathiv and the third of iskabal are frequently assimilated into the following consonant. So, we have, instead of iskathiv, we will find iskathiv, which will be written like this. Iskathiv. And as I said, these forms may appear in all of the tenses. Tense ikkathiv, tikkathiv, imperative ikkathiv, if there's an imperative of the passive reflexive, which occasionally there is, not that common, but there are occasionally imperative forms of reflexive passive verbs. Mitkathiv in the participle. Mitkathiv in the participle. And as I mentioned to you, the earlier manuscripts will always write the yod here, with the exception of the verbs where there has been metathesis. So for example, if it was shma and the form is ishtama, there they will often not write the yod, because you can't make the mistake, because the tav doesn't normally assimilate. There are very few examples of the tav assimilating it. In these ones where the tav assimilates, they will write the e. It's very interesting. I say not normally, there are a handful of examples that show the assimilation of the tav when there's been metathesis. You know, ishama instead of ishtama. They're so rare that you don't have to worry about them. I have to worry about them, because I have to find them. But they're very, very, very rare. Iskabal, hence iskabal, instead of iskabal, we are able to find forms like iqabal, iqabal, miqabal, tiqabal, li'iqabawle, iqabal in the imperative. So these forms are regularly attested, and what we have to know is that if we have a form that begins with I or mi, the likelihood is that, or ni, one of the prefixes, the likelihood is that it is one of these passive reflexives, though we're not certain. There are certain confusions in the orthography, and we will come on to those when we continue with our studies. So just to recap, we have three basic verbal stems: the G stem, the D stem, and the C stem, with just the root consonants, with the gemination, and with the a prefix, the causative prefix, and corresponding to them, we have forms which historically take the ta prefix, ikthiv, iskathiv, iskabal, and ittafal. Of these, this is very common, and this is very common, and this is extremely rare. It's extremely rare. It's hard to build a complete paradigm of the full verb because there are so few examples that are actually attested. It's only used in a very small number of verbal roots. So, in theory, we can reconstruct a paradigm theoretically based on what we would expect to find, but if I actually try to put together a list of examples, I find many of the forms are simply not attested for this. It's very, very rare. But in this one, the tav will always be preserved because it's doubled. It is geminated, and therefore the tav will always be preserved. So that was the first topic that we addressed yesterday. Any questions on that? Everything is clear. Excellent. Our second topic yesterday was the perfect pronouns. No, the second topic, sorry, was the independent pronouns. We spoke about the independent pronouns. In fact, they may have been the first topic. I may have switched them around. Doesn't matter because it's all the same. There's no importance about what you learn first and afterwards. They all come together when you see the text. So let's just have a quick look at the independent pronouns again. We have the first common singular ana, ano, around my apple. Second masculine singular and second feminine singular, if you want you to call them second common singular because they've merged, is at. So I put them down as separate, but in fact they're identical, so you could even say they were common. Historically they were separate. And then we come to the third person masculine singular, and here we have something new in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, and I told you occasionally, rarely attested in the Mandaic dialect, but we have the old forms of who and he, which are still attested, and that they're written with the aleph. We're using the Hebrew spelling, but alongside these, we have the forms ihu and ihi, and these are also extremely common in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic. So it's not that I occasionally find these. In Mandaic texts, I will occasionally find these forms, implying that they existed in the background of their spoken language, but they weren't really the main literary forms that they were employing. Occasionally they crop up in text. By contrast, in the Jewish Babylonian Talmudic Aramaic, these forms are extremely common, and there's another form we're not going to discuss now, which appears in certain types of sentences, which is based on these. So these seem to have been the dialectal forms. Those are the singulars. Now we come on to the plurals, which are one common plural is anan. Anan. Second, masculine singular. The common form is atun in the Talmud. From antun, atun in the Talmudim, in Talmud Oculus. Atun here with the loss of the nun because of Vavlamnath. I did tell you, I did warn you, so you can't sue me now for torturing you with Vavlamnath because I put it in the first class. I protected myself that you would be constantly drilled on Vavlamnath. Because of Vavlamnath, the older form atun is not really attested. Second, feminine singular. Our righteous forefathers did not address women, and therefore it does not appear, certainly not many women. They were far too righteous and modest to talk to many women. And finally, the third masculine plural, we have inhu. The old form inun occasionally appears in Gaonic text, literary text. The Talmud does not really employ it. The standard form of the Talmud is inhu, which seems to be inun with the hu from the possessive suffixes. And again, it's an analogy that has come into the pronoun system. And anybody who studies modern Arabic dialects or modern Aramaic dialects will see that this kind of analogy is occurring all of the time in the spoken languages. And we're already finding it here in these earlier texts from the 7th, 8th century, 6th, 7th, 8th centuries, where they were edited together and they composed maybe earlier, and already we have these dialectal forms. I told you that they didn't speak to women, but they did talk about women. And therefore, we do have the third feminine plural form in he. And I also mentioned to you that in the printed editions of the Talmud Bavli, this is very rare, but when we come to look in manuscripts, we will find examples of the special feminine form. And the reason I believe is simply that the copies, later copyists, weren't familiar enough with the Babylonian idiom to preserve many of the finer details of the grammar. It's not just in issues of masculine and feminine, there are many issues of grammar which were lost over the years because the copyists weren't sufficiently acquainted with these texts to copy them accurately. And when we go back to look at the manuscripts from the 10th, 11th centuries, we find the language is really quite different in those manuscripts. So, in here, and I mentioned that these two forms are extremely important to us because they will come back in the demonstrative pronouns, those masculine, those feminine, and they will come back in the accusative pronouns, the object pronouns, them men and them women. So, inhu and inhi are extremely productive in the system of Babylonian Aramaic because they serve both as independence and they serve as the basis for demonstrative and object pronouns. Yeah. So, how are we doing on time? Well, we're doing fantastically. Excellent. We've done a little bit of backtracking because at this stage it's very important to try to keep up with what we see. Now, like the Prime Minister of Britain, you can all go away and just try and work out what I was singing. Okay. Now, the second topic, or the third topic, I've lost count. This is why I did not become a mathematician or an accountant. My career in accountancy was tragically cut short. We are going to discuss the independent, no, we did that, the perfect affixes, the perfect morphemes, yes. So, there is method to my madness, or perhaps there's madness to my method. It's not clear which came first. First person modern singular is Xavi. Basically, the trick, I should have told you the trick. The trick is, in Babylonian Aramaic, like in Talmud Onkelos, we start with third person masculine singular. And that gives us the basis of all the other verb forms. So if this is ktav, I take that basis and I just add the endings to it, which is nice. It's one of the nice things about Talmud Onkelos. It's nicer than biblical Aramaic and classical Syriac. In classical Syriac, you have to remember that there's kethveth and kethvath, which isn't nice. In Babylonian Aramaic, you just have this, and remember, it's kvav. So kvav, e. And that comes from thavit, from the old Aramaic ending is, but because of Vavlamnas, the thaf has been lost at the end. So kvavi is I wrote. And this is the standard form in Babylonian Aramaic. Don't forget that tav, because it will come back to haunt us before pronominal object suffixes. It means that like in Hebrew, where we have katva or gamla, but we have, when we add a suffix, him, the tav comes back and we get forms like gemalafu uktvattu. The tav will come back. So this will come back before pronominal suffixes. It's there in the background, hiding out. I'm waiting for a pronominal suffix to come and say it. So, first one singular. Second masculine singular, tav. And we said that the final vowel is lost, and it never comes back before pronominal suffixes, unlike in Talmud Orkus, where the R will come back if it isn't attested before pronominal suffix. Here, it will never come back. Second, feminine singular, tav. And here too, unlike maybe other Aramaic dialects, the final vowel is lost. So essentially here again, we have a second common singular for the perfect. Now we go feminine singular, feminine singular. We said that we have the most common form is kfar. And I think that numerically this is actually the most common form of the feminine. Alongside this, in the manuscripts, we find many, many examples of kfar, where the final vowel has been elided. We also find some examples of the classical form kfar. And the question is, to what extent are these forms kfarat later emendations by scribes based on more classical Aramaic, or maybe in Babylonian Aramaic they simply used both of them. They also occasionally used the classical forms when they were composing texts. It's hard to know. Since we only have manuscripts from the 10th century onwards, it's very hard to know what the Talmud would have looked like in the 8th century. What the materials that the Talmud was composed of sound like in the 5th century, assuming that these materials eventually found their way into the book, the work we now call the Talmud. They existed in some form back in the 5th century. How did they look? We don't know. There's not a single document that can tell us this of Talmudic Aramaic. However, the magic roll texts do give us an idea of the kinds of Aramaic that we're knocking around, and they are much more mixed than people credit them for. You will find together higher literary and lower literary forms in the same text within the same context. It's complex. Now we skip to this side. One common plural. We said that the most common form in the early manuscripts is the verb none, but there are some verbs that have this amaran. It's quite common. Amaran. It's written like this. There are no vocalized examples of this in the manuscript, which is unfortunate as far as I know, and therefore the vocalization that I'm proposing is based on my learned guess. Amaran. Second person, common plural, the second person, masculine plural, tavtu. And that should be ktaftun, should be. That was once ktaftun with a nun. The nun is fallen off because of Vavlamna. Say it was important. When I did the phonology class, I told you this is very boring, but it's also very important. Because if you learn this, then everything else we do as we go along can be explained. If you know another Semitic language or another form of Aramaic and you compare it and you use those rules, you can, in most cases, work out how these forms came into being. Again, the nun will not come back before pronominal suffixes. However, also in Hebrew, we have helitunu, and we have a similar thing in the Targum, where before the pronominal suffixes, the tun is shortened to tu. In Arabic, we have the opposite effect, where katabtum gives us katabtumuhu, for example. You wrote them, and there's evidence that that may be the original form. But we're not learning Arabic here, so we don't have to worry about that. Second, feminine plural, is thankfully not attested in the Talmud, one less thing to learn, but as I mentioned to you, it is attested in the magic bowls, and it seems to have been ketavtin as we would expect. The question is, are there forms ketavti? And that is, such forms are found with the loss of the nun. Such, and I don't put this up on the internet until the article is published, but such forms are found in the magic bowls in Mendaic. A lot of things. In fact, the article is coming out next week with a lead amulet, or I think it'll be next week, in the Novel volume, contains a number of examples where the parallel phenomenon that we find in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic of the nun being lost on pronouns and in verbs or also occur in Mandaic texts. It's the first time these were found or identified, and then after I wrote that article I realised there were a lot of examples, and we began to gather them together from various magic texts. So as I said, one of the interesting things about working on Babylonian Aramaic is it's not we used to think it was a closed corpus because the Talmud was closed. There weren't going to be more Talmuds discovered. You may find other manuscripts of the Talmud, but you weren't going to find more parts of the Talmud. That was just not going to happen. It's a very limited corpus. And now, with the Mandaic materials and the Jewish Babylonian magic bowl text, the corpus isn't closed anymore. It's expanding all the time. We're learning new things and discovering new things in these texts all the time. So it turned out to be a great subject to choose for a doctorate, because there was going to be more material. You have to choose your doctoral topic on something where there's going to be more material coming to you, because that helps afterwards for your career. See here, finally, third masculine plural. We have the old form ktavu, which we have in all the Aramaic dialects. We also have the form where we've lost the word final vowel, thav. But we also have the very special form, which is unique to Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, where the U has become infixed, hence this form. And we know how it's vocalized because we have the vocalization in the Sasson manuscript, now the Friedberg manuscript of Halachot Pesachot, and it's actually vocalized in that manuscript. So we know that Amur, Ktuv, and this form is the umlaut form where the final vowel has become infixed prior to its loss. As I mentioned, this phenomenon was previously only known from here. I was able to discover some other examples elsewhere in the verbal paradigms, and then somebody else discovered one in a text that she had studied in MA, and so it's now known from more places in the paradigm. Finally, third, feminine singular, plural. Third feminine plural is thavan, or the loss of the nun. In thavan, and my handwriting is different. No, camera. No photo, you steal my soul. I feel like my soul is being stolen as he filmed. I already sold it to the devil, so you can steal it. You can make the devil fun. And thav. And then you have all the masculine forms too. So sometimes the masculine simply replaces the feminine. This the unending is unique to Babylonian. Yes, you wish to ask.
Here in the sheets,
yes, what I write?
There is aleph in the first form.
I said in some manuscripts it's written in aleph and some not. I should have mentioned this issue, and it's a good time to mention it. It's good you asked. The early scribes will often use an aleph. I mentioned it in the material I put on today about the noun patterns, about the noun forms, because there it's very significant. They will often write an aleph for the long a in the middle of a word. which is not normal in Hebrew and it's not normal in many other Aramaic dialects. And they will do it in order to distinguish certain grammatical forms. So I put those alifs into the table because it helps us to recognize where there was a and where there was a, which we otherwise can't see. We can't see it because the vowel sounds, the early vowel sounds don't reflect the a and a. However, it is possible that they will write it without that aleph. It's not fixed spelling. Even Arabic was not fixed spelling. If you look in the Quran, it's got different spellings. But later in the Arabic tradition, I personally developed, they developed a very clear system of almost always writing the alif in certain forms along a, and in others not writing it, almost always. So the orthography stabilized to a large extent in Arabic, and there's a systematic use of the alif to represent a. In Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, they never reached that kind of level of stabilization, and hence they will sometimes write it and sometimes not write it. So I put it in the table because it teaches us information, linguistic information about the forms, but it may not appear. So I can add to it. That's saving chalk if I don't write it. So the university would be very happy. If everyone didn't write their alifs, they would save chalk, and maybe a whole stick of chalk a year they would save if everyone did that. And that would make the accountants very, very happy at the university. Because one stick of chalk in 1 year, over a period of 1,000 years, will... Yes?
I'm sorry, I have a question. Which of these forms is more popular of third, plural, F?
For feminine, they're all very rare. Because there aren't that many of them. Seriously, there aren't that many of them. I can tell you that before the object suffixes, the only example is uses the masculine form. And it's about witches. They killed him. They killed him. It says Qatluh. It's the only form of example I found about witches killing a man. So it tells you a lot about what the Talmud thought about women and their role in society, that we mainly find feminine forms in Babylonian Aramaic from magical texts against witches or witch women killing people. So they're not very common. They're not very common. I don't know. I'm not sure which is the most common. I have to look at my secret lists and see. I mean, it's a matter of kind of constantly gathering this material for far too many years, and that's where we are. But these are the forms, and again, these endings will appear in all verbs in the perfect. So I gave you a sheet, and what we're going to do is this. We're not going to do it today because I haven't given you the answers yet. I didn't give you the answers, did I? Tonight, I've written the answers. I actually have them here. So what we're going to do is this. I will put up the answers tonight, and you will go to your quarters, and you will look at them, and then you'll check what you wrote and see where you made your mistakes. And then tomorrow, the first thing we'll do is to go through that and see what you've done. Because we've been through it twice now, so you've had a chance to have a look at it, and then we shall go through it once again. And now what we're going to do is our next topic, if I can find it. So any further questions on that? Now we're going to do the nouns and participles. Now we'll do the nouns and participles. It's exciting, nouns and participles. And I gave you material today on nouns and participles. They promised me, the weather forecast promised me that at 8 o'clock it's going to rain. As I said, I know you people from Europe are used to this kind of heat, but I'm not. I have air conditioning. I have very, very bad luck with weather, because I always flee the Middle East in the summer. About, I can tell you, 12, 13 years ago, I said, it's just too hot. I can't bear to be here anymore. I was living in a flat without air conditioning. I can't take this. I'm going to go to London with my family for 3 weeks in the summer. it was 41 degrees in London, the hottest summer ever since the 19th century when they started recording the. That was 13 years ago. In France, half the population died. In London, they didn't die, but it was just. And they said, well, if you go to the freezer section in that shop and you open the door, that you can survive this summer. So I spent the whole summer. So that's when I bought air conditioning. So our topic now so the Mikro told me it's not normally this hot. He said this is a special year. Thank you, that's just what I want. you know, so he said, well, it's not
It will
normally.
rain in 2 days.
Sorry?
It will be
I'm waiting. It said it's going to rain now. I like the rain in the summer. I like grey skies.
There is a cellar down there.
Yes?
12 degrees.
Oh, that's just my kind of temperature. Excellent. Excellent. Now, so now we come on to the nouns. Now, anyone who's studied an Aramaic dialect or comparative Semitics learns that you take the noun in Aramaic and you stick R at the end of it, and that becomes the definite form. Yes? You've learned that. Beit, or bait, depends on which dialect, baithol, the house. That is what they teach you. In Eastern Aramaic, in the Aramaic of the Talmud, and in classical Syriac already, and in Iudaic, this is not the case. If we talk about marked and unmarked forms, the unmarked form being the regular one you use, and the marked form being the one that has a special meaning, the situation has turned the other way from what we have in early Aramaic. So if in early Aramaic we say the regular form is say baith or bait, and the marked form is the one baitho, because it has that special meaning of being a specific house. In Babylonian Aramaic it's precisely the opposite. Baitho is the regular form, and baith will only appear in very specific circumstances, the absolute form. So we'll go through the forms, and we shall see how they compare to Hebrew and Arabic and other Semitic languages that you may have learned or studied or know from being very clever, having innate cleverness during the course of your lives. So I have given you the example pav. Yes, I've given you the example pav. It's here, which means good, or the good one. And we use it because it is stable. We use pav. Now here in this dialect I've written it with a patach, because it's pav, but for some reason they don't write this with an aleph. They could write it with an aleph, pav also. They could. So the masculine, standard masculine singular form, it's on your sheet, is pav. Tov. Now, as I said, it's written with patach, whereas in Biblical Aramaic, in Syriac, in Talmud, it's with tov, because that's the phonology of this language, that the long a is preserved in non-final open syllables. Pav. Fine. Lovely. In the construct, so this is the absolute, and then the construct, it doesn't change. It's pav. Oh, I enjoyed that. Very relaxing, that sound. And then we have the so-called emphatic. Now I've written emphatic here, but I'm not sure if I like that, because in fact it's not the emphatic form, it's just the unmarked form. So the terminology that we use for these forms doesn't really line up with the actual usage in the language. There's tradition that we call this the emphatic form, but it's not emphatic. There's nothing table banging about this form. It's the regular form. It's actually the unmarked form. And that is, I'm going to call it emphatic, just because I'm being difficult. And that is tovel. Tovel. But this is the regular form. If I want to say a house, baithol. If I want to say a king, malko. A man, gavro. And it's a man or the man. There's no distinction. But it's not like Russian. Or maybe it is like Russian. Because if I really want to specify that it's a particular man, I have other ways of doing it. And I'm sure, I don't know Russian, I'm sure you have it too. There are ways, the fact you don't have a definite article doesn't mean that you can't express semantically, syntactically in a sentence that it's a specific person. It just means you use other tricks. You use demonstrative pronouns, you use certain syntactic constructions to show that I'm talking about a specific man rather than any old person. And that's what you do in Babylonian Aramaic too. So there are ways in which Babylonian Aramaic marks the nouns as being specific, which are not the use of the definite article. We'll come back later to this question of why do you use the absolute? Because, as I said, this is the one which is quite rare, very rare. The construct state is also rare in Babylonian Aramaic. It's used with certain words, beit, very common with beit, the house of, will appear in construct state. Rav, master of, will appear in construct state. Other words, not really. They usually use the de, the of word, de, or di in early Aramaic and this Aramaic, de, meaning of. They use the analytic structure of adding a word meaning of. So the construct state of the classical Semitic languages it exists in Babylonian, but it's rare. The absolute exists, but it's used very specifically for certain forms, and basically most words in Babylonian Aramaic, most nouns end in "a." And that is why there's a sort of myth that in Aramaic all words end in "a." Because the most commonly known Aramaic dialects today are Jewish Aramaic of the Talmud, which people read and study, and Christian Syriac. Those are the ones that people are reading. The early Western Aramaic dialects nobody's reading, and Biblical Aramaic, apart from in theology degrees and in biblical degrees, they're not reading, and language degrees. So if you ask the average person who may know some Aramaic, they're either going to be a Nena speaker, or they're going to be a Christian who has read Syriac, or they're going to be a Jew who has learned the Babylonian Talmud. And that's why most people think all nouns end in art in Aramaic. The average person who hasn't studied this as a language, because that's simply the most common form. So then the feminine forms, is tovo. And this can be written with an aleph, it can be written with a hey. The aleph is actually quite common. I haven't really studied which is more common. Already in Biblical Aramaic, they interchange between aleph and hey. In Qumran Aramaic, they don't distinguish because they're already pronounced in the same way. In early Aramaic inscriptions, they will never use the aleph when they're not using the article, and they will never use the hey. They will never use the hey for the article. The hey is always feminine, singular, or pronoun, and so they were clearly distinguishing between the pronunciations. But in these dialects, they're not. It's just o at the end of the word. So it's just a vowel marker. Tovo, and here, tavat, which is just like in Hebrew, tovat, or in Arabic, where you have at ending. Even in the spoken Arabic dialects today, it's still used. And the form here should have been, if we take the word, we have tov, we've added to it at, the feminine ending, and now we wish to add to it the noun marker o. However, the syllable structure has now changed. So instead of being to, we actually have to, va, to. That is the syllable structure. And because this is a short vowel in an open, unstressed syllable, this is shortened to the shlag. So here the emphatic form is Tarbothor. Tarbothor. And this shval was pronounced. There's no evidence that it wasn't. It's written in the places where it needs to be written. Tarbothor. So those are the singular forms. Tarbothor. We now come on to the plural forms.
So should we put asterisk because there are long A, or there is no correspondence with patach and long A?
Here?
Yeah.
No, there is. I think there is a correspondence. That's the point. What I'm saying is, this is where I differ. I think Daniel Boyarin's article that he wrote in 1978 in the Journal of Near Eastern Studies, and then also wrote a similar piece on I hate himself. Also wrote a similar piece in Israel Oriental Studies, sometime maybe 1980 or 81, about the vowel system of the R vowels in Babylonian Arabic. And what he claimed... What?
Who wrote?
Daniel Boyarin. When he was...
In English?
In English, yes. Both of them are in English. And Boyarin claimed against Morag, because Morag had claimed that these forms all had shifted to R. And Boyarin claimed that no, in fact, that all and R were allophones. And he reconstructed a system where you basically have U, R, E, and A. And he said A is either R or O. They are allophones depending on the phonetic circumstances. And as I showed you in the first class, I disagree with that, because in my opinion, the sign, say for example here, ha, this sign has vowel quality, but it's not vowel quantity. And hence, and the reason is because the signs were invented to represent texts. They created these signs to write the vocalization of the Bible and later Targum Onkelos. They didn't develop the signs to represent the phonology of Babylonian Aramaic. But later we do find it, because later, in the later manuscripts, they have things like this. These are short ones. They have harit, or a line on top of it. This is the complex Babylonian system. Or they have kamatz with a line, meaning a short one. So you actually can see this, that they were aware of it in Babylonia. And in my opinion, this isn't Tarbothor, it's Tarbothor. They heard of the difference between the long and short vowels. But in terms of vowel quality, they didn't distinguish. The vowel quality was A, and it was between A and R. And hence, I'll go back to what I said in the first class, that there's a difference between this form, Tanyor, it teaches, and Tanyor, it is taught. And this one they will never write with the alif. They will never write it with the alif. The passive participle they will never write with the alif. The active participle they will. They will. And this is basically consistent, that the alif is used only to mark historical long R, with very, very, very few exceptions. One of the exceptions is the word man. But it's quite feasible that here it was lengthened. Instead of pronouncing it man, they pronounced it man. Because short words are very frequently lengthened to bring them up to the triliteral system. Blaumann wrote about this in his Grammar of Judeo-Arabic, where he showed that, for example, the imperatives of the Ayin Vav verbs are kul. Instead of being kul, they become kul. And he cites a number of examples. A jihad, direction, becomes jihad. In Judeo-Arabic. So he says there's a tendency to take words that don't fit into the traditional patterns of nouns because they're historically anomalous, and to expand them by lengthening the vowel. And I think that could be well what happened here. Instead of being man, they pronounce it man, because most words have that kind of pattern of consonant, long vowel consonant. And consonant, short vowel consonants is not common in the language. So
when they wrote Patach in these old manuscripts, they didn't mean that it is long A.
Short, they didn't mean short. They didn't mean short or long. They were reflecting the quality.
Why do you write?
No, what I'm saying is they didn't distinguish between. In other words, if I had and
why just don't write A without Mahan?
Because I think there's my argument is precisely this. That this is Tanya and this is Tanya, and they're phonologically distinct.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, because I think there's a phonological distinction. I think it changes the meaning. But both of them will be written with a patach sign because, the vocalization will be written the same, but the orthography won't be. So when we combine the evidence of the vocalization, and this is what Boyarin didn't do, he didn't say, well, if he talked about the vocalization, but I'm saying when you look at the orthography, they're using Aleph as a medial A marker only for long A, with very few exceptions. And you couldn't know this. It's not something you say, well, I'm only going to use it where historically there's a long A. This is simply the way they're hearing the language. And in the Gaonic period, certainly when they're using a lot of vowel letters. So, and it's invariably where there's long A. So, for example, matkal, meaning a weight. They had to know. How do they know it's not matkal? Because you look at it, these words like mafkala, which you have in Syriac, also I think, you look at, and this is maf'al. But they know this is maf'al and not maf'al. Mm-hmm. So obviously they're writing the aleph exactly where it should be. And I can also tell you that Abu Draham, who's writing his doctorate on the Mandaic texts, so that he has actually found the same thing now in the early Mandaic bolts. He said to me that what you described in your work as being correct about Babylonian Aramaic is actually very similar to the situation in the early Mandaic bolts before they start using aleph for every R vowel. But the early ones, long R will be usually marked with an aleph, and short R is frequently not. Very frequently not. Well, maybe never, I don't know. I think maybe sometimes, because they're already moving towards that, but long R is clearly marked. So there's also, he says in Mandaic, a probable distinction between short and long R vowels. To me, it's the best explanation of why it is that you consistently have the aleph letter used to mark long R. But the vocalization shows that it's A and O, and in this case, I think in that respect, Boyarin is correct. So what I'm suggesting is that the R system, it's my fault because I should have published this. That you actually have two vowels. You have A and R, which give us A and O, if you want that, and A and O as allophones. In other words, these are the allophones. The vowel quality is the allophone, and the vowel quantity is the phonemic distinction. Now, there's distinct phonemes, in my opinion. In my opinion. There are maybe some cases where you could claim there's a phonemic distinction, but it's hard to reconstruct the vowel quality, which is, for example, if you have at the end of a noun, where you have the O for the article, or you have Ah for her, Gavrah, her husband, and if they didn't pronounce the Hey, which they apparently didn't, then that would give us a phonological distinction between O and Ah. But it's possible that you could argue that there is also, or they're on the borders of having that kind of distinction appearing, but it's very hard to know whether they actually pronounce it that way or not. So, part of the thought. This is my reconstruction. As I say, any work on these texts is going to be a reconstruction. But so the reconstruction is done on the basis of the orthography. So that's the best I can, and the earliest vocalized text. That's the best I can do. And if you don't like it, I'm saying that it's always going to be a reconstruction. We don't have recordings. But to me, the fact that they consistently use the alif as a vowel letter for long shows you that they are distinguishing it. And you can reconstruct minimal pairs like this. Okay, so those are the singular and plural. So, masculine plural, we have tawin. 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 Construct, tave, as in the Hebrew with the A construct. We talk about plus A. In classical Syriac, we still have I, but these dialects use A. And finally, we have the so-called emphatic form, which, like all of the Eastern Aramaic dialects, does not use the ayya ending, what you may have learned in biblical Aramaic, antum malka melech malchaya. That no longer exists. Melech malchaya does not exist. Instead, we have tave. Now, the early manuscripts show us that they are distinguishing between A and these forms with the nun lost because of Vavilonski. I'll come back to that later. I keep promising I'll come back to that later. When I teach Anglican courses, I always tell the students that I will discuss it in the second semester. And their hope is that I will drop dead before we reach the second semester, and therefore they won't have to learn it. But it hasn't happened so far. So they've always had to learn the material in the second semester. Tav, tave, tavi. So here, even if we lose this, it becomes tavi. These distinguish between tave and tavi. And where do we lose this? In the participles. We'll come to that in a little while. So, tave. And now we come to the feminine plurals. Feminine dot Talmud. This is, anyone remember that biblical Aramaic? Syriac? Tavon. All you have in front of you. Now, did I vocalize it with the kamats or the patach? I first don't hear with the kamats, because apparently that's what appears in the manuscripts, but it could be influence of the nun, tavon, because the mem nun tend to draw the kamats vowel more. This was what Boyarin discovered, and I think he was correct. It's a phonetic influence. Tavon. And here we have the old arth ending, which you would expect, but this is exceptional in Aramaic, because we would expect from Hebrew and from Arabic it to be something like tavov, which we find in some old Aramaic inscriptions, but in most of the Aramaic dialects it's on for the masculine. So we have tavin, tavon. Masculine, tavin, tavon. Here, tavov, and now we're going to do that trick again. I put a patafe and a long aleph. These forms are so rare. I put the aleph in because presumably there's a text somewhere which actually is written with the aleph and it shows that it's got the long a. They're very rare because construct texts are very rare. And I told you that very few nouns use it. Most of them are rav and bed. So there's no very few examples. I must have found one with this arth ending. I can't remember which one it was. That was when I was young and clever and used stuff. And so now we're going to do this trick. We have tall. With a V, it could really be with a little line, but you understand. Tall. And now the feminine plural morpheme is arth. And I add now the O of the nouns, but because this vowel is long, it is not shortened. Not shortened. And so here I have tavotho. Now this is all fine and dandy. Therefore. How do I vocalize it here? Therefore. Okay. Because this is probably stressed. This is nice, but if I look at Aramaic, I have a very nasty situation where the feminine singular, the good one, is therefore, and the feminine plural one is therefore. And you say to me, I don't care because I've got the vowels here. And they tell me that therefore is singular and therefore is plural. Right? I've got the vowels. And then I can always say to you, yes, but virtually all of the texts are written without vowels. Yes?
There is written
with the other.
Construct Tawat and written Aleph.
Yes, I mentioned because what I said is that the Aleph shows you have a long vowel there, and I must have found an example. This is coming back to your question, that I wrote that the Aleph is not always used. But they're very rare. These examples are so rare because there are almost no construct examples anyway from the feminine. I can't remember where I found it. I must have found it in something. Maybe Manath, meaning I think probably Manath meaning measure of, or a portion of. I think we find in some of the manuscripts written like this, Manath. So I think that's probably where I got it from. Powerful. So this is precisely the problem. That how do I know when I have a text written without vowels, how do I know what is feminine singular and what is feminine plural? And the various Aramaic dialects developed methods for distinguishing between singular and plural forms that were written the same way. So classical Syriac invented the siyame, the two dots, and the plural form would have two dots on top of it, and we know that is feminine plural. There was a special sign saying, this word is plural, read this as a plural. Which may seem like a strange way of writing, but that's what they did. It is quite unusual that you actually have, in a Semitic language, a sign saying, this word is plural. But that's how classical Syriac dealt with certain problems of homographs, words that are written the same. Babylonian Aramaic had a different trick. The Babylonian Aramaic of the Talmud, as it's represented in early manuscripts, will add an aleph in here. And so, where we could be confused between between singular and plural forms, it will generally write the plural form with the aleph. And these are the spellings we find quite frequently in early manuscripts. For example, Medinatha, cities or towns. Medinatha. Medinta or Medinta, perhaps, the singular. Medinatha. The word for a Talmudic academy was Methivta. And we find in the manuscripts, the plural, we have the expression tarte, shte, two, Methivlatha, the two academies. And this is how it's written in the manuscripts, with the aleph. But unfortunately, when we come to the later printed editions of the Talmud, there is a tendency of the printer's editions and the later manuscripts to remove these medial alephs, to remove the linguistic information that the early scribes gave to us to distinguish between singular and plural in the feminine forms. And that is why we have to go back to the early manuscripts, because they tell us information that the later manuscripts don't have. And it's entirely in one direction. It's entirely in one direction, I think. I'm not going to get into this too much, but there is a qualitative distinction between these manuscripts and later manuscripts, and that is why, again, repeating what I said the other day, the more you expand your corpus, because you wish to include as many texts as possible, the less accurate your description is, since accurate manuscripts only survive, better manuscripts only survive for certain parts of Talmudic literature. So this is what we've done. Now the most important forms for us, then, there's two things we have to know. First of all is the A ending for masculine plural, which is unusual in the Semitic languages. The an ending for feminine absolute. So now comes the question, when do we use the absolute forms? And on your text, I've given you some examples, but the first thing, and I'm going to start with this because this is really essential for everything we're going to do, is in the participles. Participles. Because the participles have a noun form, and in most cases they function syntactically as predicates, telling you the new information about something, and therefore they're not emphatic. They're not the man, the boy, the man, the big one. The man was big or is big. The man, the going one. The man is going. That's syntactically how they function, and therefore, these endings are going to be our endings for the basic forms of our participles. So, I will say to you, give me the verb kathiv, and you'll say to me, kathiv, kathva, kathim, kathvan. Kathiv, kathva, kathim, kathvan. And I take the root kathiv, long a, or I can write it like this, which is how it's written in many early manuscripts, not all, kathiv, feminine, kathvo, or kathvo, with a long a, and I'm giving you both spellings here. Kathvin or Kathvin, but also because of Bavilamnas, Kathvi or Kathvi. Now the spellings here confuse us because there are so many of them. But in fact, what we're seeing is that sometimes they will write the a of the long vowel, and sometimes they won't write it. And some text scribes seem to have liked to use it, and others seem to have not liked it. I'm talking about actual people who sat down and wrote the text, put them onto writing. Some seem to have liked to use that, and some don't seem to have used it as frequently. So kathiv, kathva, kathvin, and finally, or kathvi, and finally, kathvan or kathvan. And immediately you jump up and say to me, but kathvan. That is the same as the feminine singular. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. That is the same as the feminine singular. Kathiv, kathva, kathvin, kathvan, or kathvi, kathva, and that is identical with the feminine singular. So, sometimes we see a verb and we don't know if it's feminine singular or feminine plural in the participles. In the participles. And now we come to the next issue. This is where things start to get interesting. Because, as I mentioned to you, in order to use a participle, I must add in the first and second person a pronominal suffix that's the subject pronoun, the one who did it, not the one to whom it was done. I will just anticipate here something I'm going to discuss later, which is that suffixes on participles in Babylonian Aramaic are always the subject and not the object. There are almost no examples where a participle is used as a noun with a possessive suffix. There are a few, but generally, but never as really an object suffix. Never an object suffix. And we'll come back to that because it's very important for the system of Babylonian Aramaic, Jewish Babylonian Aramaic. So, we have ano, I. We have the masculine, I am writing. Kathiv, no. Kathiv, I am writing. You actually have them on the sheet number 2. You will see a paradigm of participles of the root katav. And now, I feminine am writing. What's feminine writing? Kathvo. I am writing kathvan. Now, some authorities have cast doubt on whether these forms existed or merely learned reconstructions. There's absolutely no reason to believe that they are learned reconstructions. They're found commonly in Eastern Aramaic dialects. Many of them have a distinction, and as Chazim Mutzafi has shown in his recent article in Tzedek, they are also attested in Neo-Mandaic, in spoken Mandaic. So Matzor's description of the language was inaccurate, and they are found. So, in fact, there's a long history of such forms surviving, specifically feminine forms. I am writing. I am going. Kathiv, kathvona. You are writing. Kativ. At is shortened to katvat. Katvat. And because it's shortened, it seems that the feminine singular, was identical. There's no evidence that it wasn't identical. There's no examples of an aleph for feminine and not an aleph for masculine. It's very, there are a few examples incidentally in the magic bowls and in other Babylonian texts of kathvit, an e. We wrote about that, I think, in the Soin group, and then in the article I published in Bili Boha, we found a few more examples where it's kathvit, which is a magic. So, feminine, katvat. Third person simply uses the forms without the ending, kathiv and kathvo. And now we come to the plurals. We are writing katvi na. Katvinna. Katvinna. And now we come to the big surprise, which is also in that Hebrew article, which I think they do need to translate. The question is, what do we do with the second person plurals? We have the base forms katvin, and we have katvan. So, for the masculine plural, it's katvin atun, gives us, or katvin atun in this dialect, katvitu. Correct? Now, what do we do with the feminines? Do they exist? In the Talmud, they're never attested. The Talmud, they are never attested. But in classical Syrian, there is a form, katvatin, which is katvan ate for the women, using the feminine plural and the feminine pronouns. And I've been able to find it in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic texts, and particularly in a Mandaic amulet. I even recall where I was when I found it. It was such an exciting discovery that I remember where I was when I suddenly realized that we had found the missing feminine plural participle of Eastern Aramaic, hatimatin and asiratin hatimatin. It's actually written full in Mandaic because they write all the vowels. Oh, fantastic. This is what we should have found. And we have it probably in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic as well. So there probably was for feminine plural. I don't know if I put it on that sheet or not, because it doesn't appear in Talmudic texts, but we have it in the Magic Bowls, Shlihatim as well. We have in the Magic Bowls. So this will appear in an article which one day will appear in Hebrew, and if I'm sensitive, I translate it into English and publish it. because it's got some nice things in it. A lot of missing feminine forms that are now present. And we don't look at okay, so then we now have the third person doesn't take the edit. So if we run through the paradigm, we have first person, Kathivno, Kathvano. Kathvano. Kathivna, Kathvano. And it's written with aleph, so it's probably no. Second person, Kativat becomes Katvat. Feminine seems to be identical. Katvat. Seems to be. If there was a difference in vocalization vowel length, it's not reflected in the spelling, so we can't know. Third person, masculine, just uses the absolute forms of the nouns. Kathiv, feminine, Kathvo. We, Kathvin, none. Kathvin, none. Y'alls, masculine, Kathvitu, Kathvin, atu, Kathvitu. Feminine, what would appear in my article. Third person masculine, Kathvin or Kathvi. Third person feminine, Kathvan or Kathva. And again, these endings are used in all of the verbal stems. So if I use miqabbil, miqabil, miqabilna, miqablana, miqablat, miqablat, miqabbil, miqabla. Miqablinan, miqablitu, lati perhaps, miqablin or miqabli, miqablan, miqabla. If I use mithkathiv, written, I am written. It's not clear all of these forms will actually be attested. I am written, mikthivna. I feminine written, mitkatvana. Doesn't appear. I don't think there are any examples actually attested. Second person, you are written. Mitkatvat, mitkatvat, mitkattiv, mikthiv, or mikthiv, mitkatva. Plural, mitkatvina. Mitkavitu, feminine not attested, mitkatvi, mitkatva. So all of these endings, which are the old absolute endings of Aramaic, will appear frequently in Babylonian Aramaic, but they will appear in the participles. That is where they survived mostly. In addition to that, we're really doing very well for time, because we're going to finish on time. In addition to that, we will find the first column, the old absolutes, in adjectives which are used as predicates. What does that mean? The house is big. The house is big. Baitha Rav. It won't be Baitha Rabba, because that's a big house, or the big house. Baitha Rav. It will not have the R at the ending. And I've given you some examples here. Mishum biyafi ba'ath rahshucha, amri shmatafa nahashkan. Because they sit in Abdumahashkan. They sit in dark places, they say traditions that are dark. That are, and now we have a predicate, what are they? Mahashkan. And there we will find the R, not Mahashkafa. If it was a noun and its modifier, Shmafafa Mahashkafa. It has to agree in being definite. According to the Semitic languages, a noun modifier has to agree with the noun. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Okay, no. We know in Hebrew. Habbayit hagadol. The house, the big one. And that has to agree. But when we say the house which is big, then we don't put the article because it's a predicate. Habbayit asher gadol. Or in native Hebrew, habbayit sher gadol. We don't say habbayit sher hagadol or asher hagadol. Because the syntax is there's a predicate. And this is where we find these again. So we find them mostly in predicative adjectives. Zutram milayhu. Their words are small. Or their matters are few. Their matters are few. In this context, that's what it means. Zutram milayhu. Milayhu, their matters. Zutran are small. And not zutrafa. Mile is feminine. But we don't use the arthur ending, feminine plural, we use the an ending because it serves as a predicate. It's also used for some adverbs which seem to be fixed forms, like limha, tomorrow. Limha, come back tomorrow. Zilha yirona wa tul limha, and come back tomorrow. Zinin sagian, many times. Zinin sagian. These words are fixed words, and they're a verb, miklal, in general, from the principle. Lesof, at the end, not lesofa. So these, it's hard to know whether it's because of some kind of innate adverbial thing within Babylonian Aramaic, or they're simply inherited words that go back to a previous stage. We have similar things in Syriac, where after certain prepositions, the absolute forms tend to appear. Stam, without qualification, without reason. So we have them. The final category is after the numerals. And this is similar to classical Syriac. After numerals, they will use the absolute forms. Now, it is not correct to say that this distinction, that the distinction between the E and the A for the nouns, malchet and malchi, has been lost because they don't use it after the numerals. I don't want to go into this too much because this business of losing the distinction, not of this rule that you use the absolute form after the numerals, this syntactic rule is already being undermined in the magic bowls. So already in the early period, we're finding that they will use the marked forms, the regular forms, which were now the unmarked forms, the form with the arthur ending or a ending after the numerals. And it's clearly not a phonological issue because it's used also with feminine nouns. So you can't, the E and A, your may or your mean, could be a phonological breakdown. But the difference between hashhatha or hashhan cannot be a phonological breakdown. It's not because you can pronounce them the same that you lose the distinction. So you're already finding in the bowls that they're using after numerals the forms that were here, the so-called, the old emphatic forms, which become the standard forms of nouns. So it's still, you still will find quite a lot of examples that klatha yomin, 3 days. But we'll also find examples of klatha yomei. There's also more influence in that. Okay, so we've actually finished, and I mentioned some loan words with some archaic statements. So what I would recommend doing is this. Those who did not manage to complete the exercise from yesterday, I would recommend going through the exercise, and tonight I will put up the answers. It's very important not to cheat yourselves, though. Not to be dishonest with yourselves. Do the exercise and then check, and then come back tomorrow and ask me about the things you didn't understand. We'll try to put up one more exercise. I think what I'm going to do is give you the exercise of the noun, of the participles, of the kal stem, the G stem, with these person endings, because that's a good one to do now. Tomorrow we will discuss the demonstrative pronouns, this, that, and those, and then we will do an exercise on nouns in the singular and plural with their demonstrative pronouns, because then you get to do them together, these houses, this man, etc. So, any questions? Excellent. So we have actually, exactly, in the time that was allotted, we have done what we wanted to do today. So I better go off and learn Babylonian Aramaic, teach yourself Babylonian Aramaic for tomorrow, see if I can come up with some stuff tomorrow.